So I'm gonna do 1 loaf here. All right, this is just for 1 loaf. So I'm going to do my starter first, which is all ready to go. It's active. Okay, this is what it looks like. It's very sticky. All right, very sticky. So just like what your recipe says, I'm going to do for 1 single loaf, I'm going to do 30 grams of starter. And it is messy. So we have 30 grams, and now I'm actually going to do the flour next. So I'm going to push the tare button. Okay, tare. And I'm going to put 60 grams of flour. So now we're at 9 grams, 19 grams, and right now I'm just using 27 grams. I'm just using white bread flour right now for this portion. Now last we're going to add the water. First of all, how do you know it's ready? Well, you'll see bubbles on the top, and it will, mine honestly, it'll double or triple in size. I believe mine tripled. It was all the way up here. It was here at night and it went all the way up here. So that's one way you know, is if it probably, I would say double, triple, look for the bubbles, look for life. And then if it floats in the water, that's called the float test. So you will know it's ready by that, which is called the float test. And then put the starter in, and if it doesn't float, I have made some good loaves if it doesn't float. Now, if it did the double, triple, if it rose double, triple, and you see bubbles, it still drops. It's not a failure, still make the bread, but if it checks the 3 boxes, if it double, triples, you see the bubbles, life, and it floats, you know it's gonna be great. So, but if it doesn't float amazingly, it could still very well turn out. So don't doubt yourself if it sinks. I measured the water and the starter with that scale by grams. Now we're gonna take this dough hook, which is amazing, and we're gonna just stir this around. Actually, we will need the scale for the flour for sure, but we're gonna give it a good stir. Put the bowl back on. Tare again, and tare just resets the machine so you don't measure things you don't want to measure. Okay, so now I'm gonna add my flour, my bread flour. Now you guys can do this a couple different ways. You can do a full-on white wheat white flour loaf, or you can add whole wheat in there. So we're just gonna go a little bit at a time, and I love this kind of spoon. A big scoop spoon makes it go a lot faster, so I'm just looking at my grams here. I'm at 135. We're gonna use our dough hook, and we're gonna just mix it up. And I will come back and I'll show you what it looks like after you're all done mixing. Okay, so this is what it's gonna start looking like after about a minute of mixing, I would say. There's still flour on the bottom, so make sure to get all that flour out of the bottom. So remember, cover your dough so it doesn't get air in it. If it got air to it, it would just dry out the dough just a little bit. You could still bake it, no problem, but just cover it just to be safe. Okay, everybody, so it's been nearly 30 minutes of a rest period with this dough. What is the benefits of folding and stretching and folding? It helps put air in the dough, and it helps the shaping process as well. It just overall is good for the dough. Again, puts air in the dough, just helps it rise better. It just helps the overall consistency of the dough itself and the bread rising process. My fingers. I'm just gonna get a good grip on the bread. So I'm kind of just using my wrist. Just gonna get this away from the edges here. Don't get too much water in the dough, just to kind of get your fingers wet so they don't stick to the dough. Okay, now what we're gonna do, so get it away from the edges. All right. All right, so this is the stretch. Stretch and fold. I'm just gonna keep turning the bowl. Stretch and fold over. Turn the bowl. Stretch, fold over. And I'm gonna do one more. Stretch and fold over. All right, so now we're gonna do that process. So I did about 3 to 4 stretch and folds. We're gonna do that process at least 2 to 3 more times. You're gonna do what I just did 2 more times. So you're gonna do a total of about 3 stretch and folds. And then you're ready for the next step after that. In case you guys are wondering, this is what happens if something overproofs. This is the same dough that I showed you guys earlier today, and I forgot to put it in the fridge before I left home, and we were gone for about 4 hours, and by that time it had already proofed for about 4 to 5 hours. So I should have put it in the fridge just to slow down the fermentation process and or the proofing process, and because I didn't put it in the fridge, I came home to a big mess. And so it just popped, like literally popped the lid off. And that's what happens, but it doesn't necessarily mean failure. So, but this is what happens if you overproof. This is called overproofing, and this is not what you want. You want